A picture of racial hatred. The Muslims under attack as extremists target their home.
Cowards. That's all they are, really. They are really frightened of other people finding out who they are.
The surgeon who murdered his wife and jumped off a bridge with their son. The inquest hears he thought she was having an affair.
Also tonight, a public display of togetherness. Charles and Camilla side by side at the Sandringham Flower Show.
Hello from Stephen and me. Welcome to Wednesday's programme.
Well, coming up later, the return of one of our most popular series. Somerville's Walks hits the road again.
And the Lower Stopped Air show is ready for takeoff. Nearly 500,000 people will have their eyes on the skies over the next 2 days. We'll have a preview.
But first tonight, police have described it as a despicable attack. The victims saying it's incomprehensible. A pig's trotter left on the doorstep of a Muslim community leader. But the person responsible has been caught on CCTV. A short time ago, detectives released those pictures and they've appealed for help to identify the attacker. Timothy Evans reports.
Their home has become a focus for the Muslim community in Basildon. Now it's become a target for racial and religious hate. Sarfraz Sarwar has lived in Basildon for more than 30 years. He's no extremist, and neither is his wife Safina. Yet once again they're left surveying the damage to their home and counting the cost. This is what happened early yesterday morning, shortly before midnight. A masked attacker strikes, unaware he's being filmed by a police camera. A pig's trotter similar to this was left outside the house, a move calculated to cause offence to a Muslim household. The Sarwars told me they could not understand the motives of the person or persons responsible.
Cowards. That's all they are, really. Because anybody that creeps around in the middle of the night with a bag over their head or a cloth over their head is a coward.
If it's a Muslim family or the Muslims doing this to a white family, the British family, they would have called them, oh, it's the Al-Qaeda group behind this. But I personally, I'm the victim, and I find as a Muslim, whoever's doing this is got. There must be some kind of Al-Qaedas in their way to attack me like that.
There have been 2 previous attacks on the Sarwars' home already this year. Graffiti has been daubed on the walls, pig's trotters have been attached to the door, and paint has been thrown against the house. Once again, the Sarwars are arranging for the damage to be repaired. Toughened glass will be installed in the damaged window. Police in Basildon are treating the attacks as racially motivated. They're appealing for help in identifying the attacker in the CCTV pictures.
This is a despicable crime. This is an attack on someone's home. It's the 3rd occasion it's happened this year. Someone out there knows who's responsible, and we want them to contact us. We must stop this. People should be able to live in their own homes without fear of this sort of thing happening.
I would like to have a dialogue with them. I would really see what is their problem, what have I upset them. Is it because I'm a Muslim? Is it because I'm coloured? Is it because I've got round windows? You know, I would like to have a dialogue with these people. Why are they doing it?
Hukana Matata, the words outside the house, they're Swahili, and they mean no problems. But for the Sarwar family in recent months, they've not held true. Timothy Evans, Anglia News, Basildon.
They seemed the perfect family, but today an inquest in Ipswich heard how a doctor stabbed his wife to death before jumping from the Orwell Bridge with his 2-year-old son. Recording verdicts of unlawful killings and suicide, the coroner said Dr Jaya Prakash Chitty may have thought his wife was having an affair. Simon Newton reports.
Dr Jaya Prakash Chitty's brother and 2 cousins arriving for today's hearing. To the outside world, the Chittys were the perfect family, 2 successful doctors with 2 beautiful children. But behind closed doors lay a brooding jealousy that was to end in a premeditated double murder and suicide. 41-year-old Jaya Prakash, a locum at Ipswich Hospital, jumped from the Orwell Bridge in January, taking with him his 2-year-old son, Pranav. Police discovered the family's blood-stained car and traced it back to their home in Rushmere St Andrew in Ipswich. Upstairs they found the body of Mr Chitty's wife, Anu Palmer, a consultant radiologist. She'd been stabbed to death. Next door in an upstairs bedroom, still asleep, was the couple's 11-year-old son, Annie. Detective Superintendent Roy Lambert told today's inquest intimate emails between Mr Chitty and one of her former colleagues were found near her body, as well as 2 blood-stained knives. Both had Mr Chitty's fingerprints on them. The emails had come from Dr William Dunn, a consultant radiologist at the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham. Today he denied claims the pair were having an affair. He said Mrs Chitty had confided in him that the couple's 6-year arranged marriage was over and she was considering divorce. Today, Mr Chitty's family said they believe the discovery of the emails triggered the murders.
Jaya didn't express his sorrow or his feelings with anybody else. Had he shared his grievances with somebody, we would have consoled him or probably would have taken other steps like maybe a divorce or something else in a peaceful way. But probably the emails which went through and back might have triggered him, or after seeing the contents of the email, he couldn't withstand and he might have taken that extreme step. That's what we feel.
Today, the coroner recorded verdicts of unlawful killing on Anupama and Pranav Chitty. Mr Chitty, he said, had taken his own life. Dr Peter Dean said the word tragedy is often overused. In this case, though, it was the only appropriate description for events. At the end of today's hearing, a statement was read out in court from the brother of Anupama Chitty. Ashok Damira said, "We all have problems and we need to sort them out. Killing your spouse is not an option. Don't ever resort to the horrific act of taking the life of your own flesh and blood." Simon Newton, Anglia News, Ipswich.
Just after 6:05, you're watching Anglia Tonight. Now next, the Prince of Wales and Camilla Parker Bowles have been in West Norfolk today, taking in the sights and the scents of the annual Sandringham Flower Show.
They appeared to enjoy themselves and this year made little attempt to disguise the fact that they were very much together. Here's Malcolm Robertson.
For Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, the Sandringham Flower Show is now a permanent fixture in their social diary. The Prince has taken on the role of patron following the death of his grandmother, the Queen Mother, and his longtime companion clearly relishes the occasion as well. This is the third year that Prince Charles and Mrs Parker Bowles have visited the Sandringham Flower Show. Very evident that they're a couple this year, and also very evident that there is huge public support because there are thousands of people here, certainly the biggest attendance there's been since the Queen Mother was patron. They toured the various displays together, in contrast to a couple of years ago when they kept a discreet distance from each other. The Prince was certainly taken by the display of roses produced by Norfolk rose grower Peter Beales, whose wife presented the royal visitor with one grown specially for the Chelsea Flower Show. The Prince also selected a violet one for Mrs Parker Bowles, chosen because it matched her outfit.
We will never forget what the Queen Mother did for the show, and she'll always be remembered, particularly on this day. But the Prince of Wales was very much part of that scene for the last 10 years anyhow. So if one can have a natural progression, that was the natural progression.
Accompanying the royal party, a number of celebrities, including television presenter Jeremy Paxman, the actress Miriam Margolis, and the Shakespearean actor Sir Anthony Sher. They're among house guests at nearby Sandringham House, as is the artist David Hockney, who opted to spend the morning painting in the grounds. The couple spent more than 2 hours touring the show. As a self-confessed lover of honey, the Prince showed considerable interest in the beekeepers' display.
I asked him whether he wanted to see the Queen Bee. He was very interested in that and asked us all sorts of questions about the hive and various aspects of it.
But for the main part, the Prince and Mrs Parker Bowles chatted happily to some of the thousands who lined the route. The Prince was taking no chances with the weather, but with it hot and dry, the majority dressed accordingly. Naturally, they were closely monitored by the royal snappers, but there are also very good opportunities for the hundreds of amateur photographers. One of the best snaps, Mrs Parker Bowles buying raffle tickets. Such was her generosity, she also bought for the Prince and told them to keep the change. Malcolm Robertson, Anglia News, Sandringham.
But did they win anything? And if they did, what?
Exactly, we have to ask Malcolm.
We need to know, we'll tell you tomorrow. Another of the highlights of the summer calendar, the Lowestoft Air Show, starts tomorrow. Stay with us for all you need to know for a great day out.
Yes, Sara will tell you whether to pack a brolly or the sun cream, plus the return of a much-loved Anglia duo.
Yes, Somerville's Walks is back. Tonight, travel writer Christopher and our own John Francis are off exploring North Norfolk's famous poppy lands.
Well, before that, new figures have shown that the RSPCA took 250,000 calls, rescued 44,000 animals and made 122 prosecutions in the east of England last year. Rescued animals included these dogs, which were found at a house at Emneth in West Norfolk. They've now been found new homes after being removed from conditions of appalling squalor. They were reunited by the RSPCA to highlight the ongoing fight against animal cruelty.
An investigation's underway to find out what caused a major fire at a seafront casino in Essex. 50 firefighters were called out to the Westcliff Casino in Southend yesterday afternoon. 80 staff and customers were led to safety after the fire took hold in the kitchens. Smoke spread through much of the building, but fire crews prevented the flames reaching the main casino. It's thought the fire was accidental.
The man in charge of Norfolk speed cameras has resigned. Barry Parnell, who is the manager of the Norfolk Casualty Reduction Partnership, leaves his post shortly after the release of a critical report into the siting of speed cameras in the county. Mr Parnell, though, insists his resignation was for personal reasons and not related to a review of camera locations. One of the region's MPs says he and his family are living in fear of being attacked by animal rights extremists.
Norwich North MP Ian Gibson, who chairs the Commons Science and Technology Committee, believes his support of some animal experiments could make him a target. Graham Lewis has more.
Just how safe are the streets of Norwich today for one of the city's MPs? Dr Ian Gibson, who backs some animal experiments, says a small minority of animal rights extremists have left him and his wife living in fear of an attack.
Certainly there's a group who've shown that they're quite prepared to use violence, and it is a continual threat, and anybody who speaks out on the issue and tries to defend some animal experiments anyways is under that kind of threat.
This is the sort of thing Dr Gibson's concerned about. In February 2001, Brian Cass, the boss of Huntingdon Life Sciences, was injured in an attack at home. Some of the staff at the research company have also been targeted. This was 4 years ago when police were called to investigate arson attacks on staff cars. Dr Gibson's likened it to terrorism.
Whilst we don't support any illegal actions, I'll tell you about terrorism. Terrorism is taking a 4-month-old beagle puppy with its tail wagging at Huntingdon Life Sciences and slowly destroying its spirit and poisoning it to death, and so it dies on its cage floor. That's terrorism. Anybody who talks about terrorism really doesn't know what they're talking about. I'd like to fly these people to Iraq and places like that and watch people being beheaded and then say that's terrorism.
I was at Cambridge University yesterday and saw some of the work going on with mental health diseases, and the need to have animal models was quite essential to understand Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and so on. So essentially I think animal experiments will still need to happen to some extent.
Police in Cambridgeshire today revealed they've spent 360,000 police hours dealing with demonstrations like this by animal rights groups. On Friday, ministers will unveil a new strategy for tackling campaigners who harass research companies. In the meantime, Dr Gibson is continuing to take security precautions, including checking under his car and making sure there's no one lurking in the shadows. Graham Lewis, Anglia News, Norwich.
20 warning signs along a seawall in Felixstowe look like they're there to stay. Councillors complained to the Environment Agency after they were put up, saying there were too many and they're an eyesore. But the agency says the signs are necessary for health and safety and they must stay.
And health and safety legislation's also reached Ipswich Cemetery. 300 headstones at the graveyard have had warning tape fixed to them, telling mourners they're unstable. 900 have been checked so far, but officials eventually plan to test all of Ipswich's 80,000 burial plots.
An outbreak of blue-green algae means swimmers have been temporarily banned from the Little Broad at Whitlingham near Norwich. The algae is naturally present in the water, but when it blooms in hot, still weather, it can cause skin irritation and it's poisonous to dogs. The Whitlingham Charitable Trust, which manages the Broad, is using barley straw to stop the algae from spreading. Better news is that Whitlingham Great Broad remains open for sailing and canoeing.
No such worries in Essex, where 140 youngsters staged a colourful sail past as part of the annual Mersey Cadet Week. This year's theme is the Olympics, and today they dressed up and decorated their boats to represent the countries and continents involved. In theory, they were meant to salute their commodores during the sail past. In practice, they did their best to drench them with water guns and water bombs. All good fun. We'll be hearing about the weather in just a minute, but if there's anyone hoping for clear skies over the next 2 days, it's the organisers of the Lowestoft Air Festival.
Well, now in its 8th year, the show is expecting to attract nearly 500,000 people. But for the first time this year, all visitors are being asked to make a £1 donation to help secure its future. Rebecca Holmes has more for us.
A little taster of what's to come. The Royal Jordanian Falcons doing a preview display over a glorious Lowestoft beach today. This year they'll be joined by all the old favourites and a return of the Red Arrows and the Harrier, which crashed dramatically into the sea 2 years ago. Today it was fingers crossed for high cloud and no haze.
We always have a good air show, but tomorrow we've got newcomers like the Catalina, which we hope may do a landing on the water. We've got the Royal Jordanian Falcons, we've got the Yakovlev team. The Royal Air Force have supported us very, very well. Quite a number of aircraft, including a Harrier, Hawk and Jaguar.
The day's events start at 10 o'clock with a whole range of activities on the ground. The flying begins at 1:40 and continues throughout the afternoon, ending with the famous red arrows at 5 o'clock. And there's a firework display to end the day at 10 p.m. As for getting there, well, the advice is don't attempt to drive into the centre of town. Local people should go on foot. Others should aim for the special park and ride car parks at Pakefield and Corton. There are also 3 extra trains from Norwich to Lowestoft in the morning at 9:26, 10:05 and 11:57, and coming back at 5:56 and 7:24. The Ipswich to Lowestoft trains will have extra carriages. This will be the 8th Lowestoft Air Festival, and once again the event is entirely free. But for the first time this year, organisers are asking all visitors to give a £1 donation to help pay for this year's event and secure its future. The event was previously part funded with a European grant. That's now stopped. The local councils say the donations on the day will be vital if the public want the show to go on.
It's very dependent on the people who, both our visitors and residents from the Lowestoft area, to show us that they really do want to have an air show for next year and the years to come after that as well.
Last year, 250,000 people attended the show. Bad weather marred the second day. They're hoping for 400,000 this year, and so far it looks like blue skies ahead. Rebecca Holmes, Anglia News, Lowestoft.
Excellent. Always a good show, isn't it?
Do you know, to my eternal shame, I've never been.
No?
But I think I might see if I can squeeze down tomorrow before work.
Ah, you're on a late shift,
Yes.
you lucky thing. So what will the weather be doing for this year's air show?
Well, it looks as though summer has returned. Sara's got all the details for us.
Hello, good evening to you from the weather team. We're out and about this evening because it's been such a beautiful summer's day right across the region. Although perhaps we did start with a little bit of extra cloud on the North Norfolk coast. Our weather pictures this morning come from Blakeney. Very, very beautiful spot, but as I say, a bit of increased cloud there, which tended to melt away nicely as we went towards the lunchtime period. And then through the afternoon, we've seen a little bit more cloud bubbling up, but that's not stopped us seeing highs of 26 Celsius in Cambridge today. So very pleasant indeed. Now it's set to get even warmer in the next couple of days, particularly tomorrow. We could see highs inland of 28, 29 Celsius, which is well into the 80s Fahrenheit. If you don't like it as warm as that, my advice is to head towards the coast. At Lowestoft, for instance, for the air show, it's going to be very pleasant there. An onshore breeze means we'll see highs of 23, 24 Celsius. Some good sunny skies too. A little bit more cloud first thing on Friday. I'll tell you all about it in just a few minutes' time. Back to the studio.
Nothing to complain about there. You're watching Anglia Tonight. Football action in just a moment.
Well, 6:30, it's over to Andrea Cathwood and Bill Neely in London.
Coming up on tonight's ITV Evening News, video game in the dock, the shoot-'em-up that's being blamed for a vicious schoolboy murder.
Plus, Svengate, is he about to be shown the red card as the tabloids sense blood? Those stories and more at 6:30.
Well, let's stay with football, but move closer to home. And Norwich continued their pre-season preparations last night with the local derby at Cambridge United. City fielded a strong side, minus the new signing Thomas Helveg. Dan O'Hagan was at the Abbey Stadium.
Forget your meat pies. Ice cream the order of the day at the Abbey Stadium. Over 4,000 turned out to see Cambridge tackle Premiership Norwich City.
Programs, Superats winning your programs.
Plenty of pre-season optimism from both sets of fans. Cambridge these days under new management.
I reckon sort of push for playoffs, if sort of thing, with her Bernard in charge. I think he's better manager than John Taylor. I know some of the others might disagree on that, but I reckon he's got the team under control and sorted them out.
We're going up this year. We've had too many years down. We're going up this year.
The Canaries gearing up for life at the higher grade.
Oh, we got quite a hard start to the season. We need 3 points from the game against Crystal Palace at home. I don't think we're going to get too much from Manchester United or Newcastle away.
I think we're going to surprise a few people, to be honest. I'm not as worried as some people are. I think we're going to pull something out of the bag.
New faces on show for both teams. A Norwich new boy made the opening goal inside of 2 minutes. David Bentley's cross turned home by the familiar figure of Paul McVeigh. New Cambridge manager Hervé Renard fielded rookie goalkeeper John Ruddy. He was beaten twice in the opening 4 minutes. Norwich's second goal courtesy of a neat turn from Matt Svensson. Ruddy stood between Cambridge and a real mauling. This smart save denying Svensson's downward header. Svensson was perhaps City's best player, and deservedly he scored again. His header blocked by Ruddy, the rebound making it 3-0 at half-time. Cambridge improved after the break and the League Two side scored 12 minutes in. New signing Abdou El Kolti's corner, embarrassing the Premiership side and going straight in. Norwich brought on former youth striker Zima Abbey towards the end, but the home side ended on top, this one of several chances to reduce the deficit further. 3-1 to City the final score, but for Cambridge, a second half to be proud of.
I'm really happy with the second half. I really try to forget this first half this evening.
And the one thing I've said all along, I'm not going to sign people for the sake of saying that I've made 6, 7, 8 signings. I'm trying to add quality to the current group that I've got and trying to move us on slowly and gradually.
City's Premiership opener still over a fortnight away. Cambridge kick off for real in 10 days' time. Dan O'Hagan, Anglia News at the Abbey Stadium.
Meanwhile, the pre-season action continues tonight when Ipswich play host to Sir Bobby Robson's Newcastle United. It's a testimonial match in memory of Dale Roberts, the former Town player and assistant manager who died nearly 2 years ago from cancer. A large crowd's expected to turn out for the tribute at Portman Road. Now it's time to see if we can get you all fired up to take part in Britain on the Move, the ITV campaign to improve the nation's health by getting us all walking.
And who better to motivate us than the team who took us on 100 country walks on Anglia in the 90s, our own John Francis and the travel writer Christopher Somerville.
Tonight they're on the North Norfolk coast as they begin a series revisiting some of their favourite walks.
Well, John, I can hardly believe it, but here we are again with a little bit more snow on the roof this time.
Yeah, I couldn't
I
couldn't be more pleased that Britain on the Move has got us back on the road. So what have we got to begin with?
Well, I mean, Cromer's the obvious place to start, isn't it? And it's such a lovely place, and I'm sure you sported on these sands when you were a child, didn't you?
Well, I have been coming to Norfolk beaches, shall we say, for a good few years now.
Yes.
I think the thing everyone remembers about Cromer, though, is it's got the big three, isn't it? It's got the pier and the crabs and the lifeboat.
And the fabulous cliffs, of course, which we're going to be walking along a little bit later on. Cromer may be everyone's dream of the idyllic English seaside resort, but it wasn't always like that here. In the 18th century, Cromer was a run-down fishing village, until the Reverend Robert Barclay brought his family here in the 1790s. For 100 years, the Quaker families ran Cromer like their own private estate, until the East Norfolk Railway arrived in 1877 and turned the town into a fantastically popular seaside resort. But there was a more serious aspect to the sea at Cromer too. Which Norfolk person hasn't heard of brave coxswain Henry Blogg, his 53 years at the helm of the Cromer lifeboat and his 3 gold RNLI medals? Coxswain Blogg lends his name these days to the excellent lifeboat museum that's been established in the old boathouse on Cromer Beach. This coast is one of the most treacherous in Britain. In fact, its local name is the Devil's Throat.
I think with the sandbanks outside here, the Haysborough Sands and the ones running further out, and the exposure to the North Pole really, no land between here and the North Pole, the wind just blows down, brings the tide down with it, and can really whip it up rough here at times. I mean, during the old days of the sailing ships and that, I mean, you might have 100 ships up and down here in one night, and you get a bad storm and they've lost no end of them.
Once you've walked your fill on Cromer Sands, you can climb the zigzag steps and set off along the cliffs into the open country beyond Cromer. That's what the journalist Clement Scott did when he came to Cromer in August 1883 to write about the area for the Daily Telegraph. Scott didn't like what he found at all, as he made quite clear in his best-selling book, The Poppyland Papers. There they all were, digging on the sands, working, reading, flirting, donkey riding, in a circle that seemed to me ridiculously small as I looked at it from this height. In that red-roofed village, there was not a bed to be had for love nor money. All home comforts, all conveniences were sacrificed for the sake of a lodging amongst a little society that loved its band, its pier, its shingle and its sea.
Not a happy bunny, then?
No, he wasn't. He despised what he saw as a tripperish little village, you know, but he found the peace and quiet he was looking for along these cliffs, and in doing so, to celebrate it, he wrote this, what turned out to be a bestseller, The Poppyland Papers.
Indeed. Well, now, let's see what we can find here. A blue sky without a cloud across it, a sea sparkling under a haze of heat, wildflowers in profusion around me, poppies predominating everywhere, the hedgerows full of blackberry blossom and fringed with meadow sweet, the bees busy at their work, the air filled with insect life, the songbirds startled from the standing corn as I pursued my solitary way.
Clement Scott found lodgings with the miller of Sidestrand, Alfred Jermy, and his 19-year-old daughter, Louis. Was there a love affair between the sophisticated Londoner and the simple country girl? Probably not, though Scott's readers would have liked to have thought so. The Poppyland Papers made Sidestrand famous. Incomers came flocking, rich bankers and actresses had grand houses built, there was an influx of smart London second homers and bungalow renters, and a huge tourist boom got underway. Clement Scott soon got sick of all the tourists, and many of the places he'd loved eventually fell into the sea, victims of the famously unstable cliffs of this coast.
It's poignant, I suppose, to think that it was Scott himself who killed off the peace and quiet that he was so passionate about.
Yes, it is rather poignant, but on the other hand, I quite like to think of Scott and Louis Jermy perhaps having a bit of a kiss and cuddle on these cliffs among the flowers, even though, in fact, I'm sure they never really did.
You're just an old romantic, aren't you?
Those poppies are beautiful, aren't they? Did we really see a picture of a very young John Francis
I
there?
think we did.
I think we did.
Although I thought the old snow on the roof comment was a bit harsh. He looks distinguished.
He does. Now, if you'd like to follow in Christopher and John's footsteps, you can find details of all 6 walks in this series on the Anglia website.
There are notes about what to see and where to find refreshments along the way. I think that means the pub. Log on to angliatv.com.
I think you're probably right. Or you can send we can send you a fact sheet. Just send us a large stamped addressed envelope to Anglia Action Ipswich IP1 2QA. So, is it walking weather? Here's Sara again with tonight's Anglia forecast and the pollen count.
Hello, good evening to you from Anglia Weather. Out and about this evening, enjoying the best of the sunshine that's been around. It's been a glorious day, and we come to you from the Flag Fen Bronze Age Centre in Cambridgeshire. There has been some cloud around the region through the day today. We started with it, especially in the north of the region. As you can see there, it melted away as we went through the morning, but in the afternoon, again, we saw some more cloud bubbling up. It didn't stop temperatures on the rise, though. In fact, we saw a high of 26 Celsius at Cambridge. Our Newmarket correspondent says he saw a 27, and that cloud is tending to thin and break as we go through the evening too, so it's going to be a very pleasant evening. High pressure is in control of our weather at the moment. Tomorrow is going to be even warmer and plenty of sunshine around. If there's a slight blip on the horizon, it's in the form of a cold front encroaching from the west. As we move through Thursday night into Friday, that's going to cross our region, so we may start with some increased cloud Friday morning, perhaps potentially thick enough for some early light rain, but that'll be very light indeed. Most places will stay dry, and it'll improve as we go through the day. So through this evening then, some good sunshine. Any cloud we saw today will be thinning and breaking all the time. Overnight tonight, some clear skies. Might just see a little bit of mist forming here and there, and lows between 14 and 16 Celsius. So tomorrow might just start with a bit of mist here and there, but the sunshine clearing through that really rather quickly, and then a lovely afternoon, even warmer than today, potentially with highs of 28, maybe even 29 Celsius in the south of the region, but it will be a touch cooler at the coast and more pleasant because of an onshore breeze. And then on Friday, as I say, we're going to start with some increased cloud, but it's thinning and breaking all the time, and the weekend is looking fantastic. We keep the sunny weather as we go through, temperatures in the mid-20s Celsius, and that continues to next week. Here comes your pollen count.
The pollen count, sponsored by Benadryl.
Plenty of sunshine across the region tomorrow, but just moderate pollen counts for us. And as I say, we will have an onshore breeze at the coast, so it'll be low pollen counts there. From Anglia Weather, good evening.
That's it. We'll have all the best from the Lowestoft Air Show in tomorrow night's programme.
That's it for now. As Claire says, it's over to London. Good night.
Good night.
Video game in the dock. Did it contribute to this boy's murder? Manhunt has been called the most violent game ever made. Now, the mother of a dead boy wants it banned.
Also tonight, Drugs in Sport claims that the British watchdog was sacked because she was too keen to catch cheats.
The danger is, of course, everybody wants to shoot the messenger.
Baby killer, the illegal immigrant found guilty of murdering his own son. And will Sven get the red card? Now there's a tabloid feeding frenzy.